Okay, so back with another one about body complexes. Okay, so there's this thing called small man's disease or Napoleonic complex, and it comes from being short, shorter than average. Uh, and you'll notice that sometimes guys that are real short, they seem like they're like trying to prove something. They're always sort of like up in your face. I used to know this guy, and I think I talked about this guy uh, when I did the video "Chip on Your Shoulder." Chip on your shoulder. Go check out that video. He had a chip on his shoulder because he was short. He had small man's disease. He had Napoleonic complex. This guy's name was Al, and he was short, and he was always like looking for confrontation and wanting to prove how tough he was, and you know what I mean. It's you guys, you've all met these kind of people. They're real overbearing. They'll put their arm around you and like, hey, how's it going? And it's uh, it's pretty obvious, right? I used to work for a guy who he was my boss, and he was the meanest boss you ever want to work for, you know, and because he just had this thing, this complex, and it's kind of like this thing where, let's say, for example, you ever notice a Chihuahua? They bark all the time because they're small and they feel frightened in this big world. They feel small in this world, but a big dog, they only bark when it's necessary, right? Uh, that's not always the case, but you notice the least chill dogs sometimes are the smallest dogs. So, anyway, that is called small man's disease or Napoleonic complex. There used to be this thing where they assumed that Napoleon was short. They later found out that Napoleon wasn't actually short, but because they used a different measuring system, and but anyway, it was always assumed throughout history that Napoleon was short, and because he was short, he had a complex about being short, and therefore he wanted to conquer every country and show what a tough guy he was, right? So uh, if somebody has small man's disease, it's something if you don't get along with that guy, and say, listen, hey, listen, man, I know you got the small man's disease. You don't have to prove anything with me. Or that's only if things come to like a conflict, or it's like, for example, what was that guy's name? I think his name was Lindsay. People said, yeah, that he's got small man's disease bad. Ah, Napoleonic complex, whatever. Okay, so let's take a look of a couple of examples that I got set up for you. Hopefully this mic is working okay. I'm doing my best here. Okay. Um, I just want to talk about dysmorphia. So, body dysmorphia is a mental health condition in which you can't stop thinking about one or more perceived defects or flaws in your appearance. Okay. Uh, I think personally had some kind of a complex when I first started losing my hair. Before I shaved it, I was self conscious. I didn't want people to take pictures from behind. But now I'm sort of past it because I've you know shaved my head and I still look good. All right, so let's see. Small man's disease, small man syndrome. Small man syndrome refers to a condition where a man, a man, right? Women don't have this as much because, like, short women are still attractive, and guys sometimes are even more attractive. Myself, I find short women to be attractive. You know what I mean? So there's no and women don't have to fight as much as men, and it doesn't really mean much to their life about being short. So they don't have this complex as much, I think. But men have this complex because this is how, being bigger, we maybe more, to a point, we can attract more mates. I think really big guys don't necessarily, women's. There comes a point when women are not attracted to somebody who's hugely. There's a huge differential, but I think. But where a man feels inadequate because of his short height and may try to overcompensate for it with overly aggressive behavior. And this syndrome is often referred to as Napoleonic complex in reference to this famous military leader. He was also named himself the emperor. Okay. But let's see if that's a thing. Okay.
They have a Napoleonic complex, a little dog.
Okay,
I've been watching you at home with your dog.
They have a Napoleonic complex.
Okay, they have Napoleonic complex, and she's talking about these dogs, right? Barking all the time.
Elf with a Napoleonic complex.
Okay, he's talking about Anthony Fauci, who is fairly, he's short, and seems to be compensating somehow.
A small person with small man complex. He's Napoleonic in some way. He feels like he's.
Okay, he's talking about some kind of a character in one of his books or something like that. But I want to.
And all we like characters who have chips on their shoulder.
Okay, by the way, this is that video that I made a long time ago, chip on their shoulder. We like characters who have chips on their shoulder in some way. Go watch that video.
In some way, David Brent had issues, and all the characters we had. And what we liked about the idea of Warwick's character was making him a small person with small man complex.
Okay, so a person with Napoleonic complex or small man's complex has a chip on their shoulder, and what that means is that they sort of have something that they think they need to prove, that they're almost like they're looking for a fight, right? So. So, you'll notice this. Okay. So anyway, I will talk to you on the next idiom.